The drama surrounding Chris Eubank begins not in the glittering arenas of London or the roaring stadiums of Europe, but on the rough streets on the outskirts of the city. Born in 1966 to Jamaican parents, Christopher Eubank was the youngest of 3 children, a boy who quickly learned to survive through cunning and speed. London's grey streets offered him no safety net, only petty theft and fleeting triumphs over circumstance. By 15, the authorities had had enough, and the young troublemaker was expelled from school. It was his father's decision that sent him across the Atlantic to live with his mother in the Bronx, New York, a place as unfamiliar as it was unforgiving. Yet, even there, the seeds of greatness quietly took root. Following in his older brother's footsteps, Eubank discovered a gym, and more importantly, a new understanding of power. Boxing was not just a sport, it was a crucible. The fights were merciless, the lessons immediate. And there, amid the clanging of bags and the rhythm of gloves on leather, Eubank shed the S from his surname, a small gesture, perhaps, but a signal that something extraordinary was emerging. By 1985, he stepped into the professional ring. And from that moment, the world began to take notice. The young Brit was a study in contrasts. On one hand, there was a man of meticulous manners, eloquent, precise, almost aristocratic in posture. On the other, there was a predator with fists that carried the weight of raw instinct, a right hand that could flatten defenses in an instant. Early bouts were a dance of confidence and calculation. He jabbed, countered, and suddenly unleashed thunderous right hands that would leave opponents staggering. With feline grace, he avoided blows, exposed defensive cracks, and systematically dismantled those foolish enough to meet him head-on. By 1988, Eubank had returned to the United Kingdom with a cross so devastating that it seemed to herald a new era in middleweight boxing, a long-range missile that would haunt the 160-pound division 4 years to come. Eubank's rise was as inevitable as it was dramatic. Over the next year, he fought 9 times, moving fluidly between tactical precision and brute force. Opponents fell one after another, often before the crowd had a chance to fully comprehend the spectacle. But with talent came controversy. His self-assured nature drew criticism. The media painted him as arrogant, overconfident, unapologetically. Eubank embraced the challenge with his characteristic charm and fire, coining the nickname "Simply the Best," a declaration that would provoke, inspire, and unsettle in equal measure. Yet the results spoke for themselves. Victories piled up, 20 by early 1990, without a single misstep, and each win further cemented his reputation as a knockout artist with a gentleman's poise. It was in these moments that the drama of Eubank's career truly began. He faced Nigel Benn, a fighter as fiery as he was popular. The clash was inevitable. Intellect versus raw aggression, aristocrat versus destroyer. Promoters seized the narrative. Good guy versus bad guy. Yet Eubank, with his gift of words and flair for provocation, unsettled the favorite. The fights were exhibitions in contrast. Benn's hooks, heavy and merciless. Eubank's counters elegant, precise, almost surgical. The first encounter was a masterclass in control and adaptation. Eubank tested Benn's defenses, absorbed the blows, and responded with a relentless display of technique, culminating in a decisive 9th-round victory. Gold draped around his waist, Eubank celebrated not just with triumph but with humanity, proposing to his beloved Karen in the post-fight fervor and acknowledging the skill of his vanquished adversary. The British public was captivated, but divided. Outside the ring, Eubank was an enigma. He dressed like a 19th-century aristocrat, attended social gatherings, spoke with a cultivated accent, and displayed a lisp that added charm rather than flaw. Yet the same crowd that cheered his finesse in the ring questioned the sincerity of his offering persona. Unable to reconcile the gentlemanly elegance with the ferocity displayed in the squared circle, Eubank himself would later explain the duality. The performer and the man are not the same. In the ring, he was lionhearted, bold, and audacious. Outside, he was a man of reason, refinement, and deep thought. Yet, it was not just elegance that defined his legacy. It was power tempered by conscience. Michael Watson, one of Eubank's most formidable adversaries, would experience the dark side of boxing firsthand. Their bout, a clash of skill and endurance, ended in a catastrophe that would haunt the sport. Watson was left critically injured, enduring a coma and months of life-altering recovery. Eubank, despite his dominant persona, carried the weight of that night as a personal burden. He donated to Watson's care, participated in charity exhibitions, and ensured that his victories would henceforth come without unnecessary peril to opponents. The incident underscored a side of Eubank rarely seen in the glare of the spotlight, a man of conscience, unwilling to sacrifice life for the spectacle, even as he wielded fists capable of ending careers in a heartbeat. Even after tragedy, Eubank's legend continued to grow. Title defenses came fast and furious, 5 or 6 a year each fight, a blend of artistry and aggression. His opponents were systematically dismantled, often before the crowd fully grasped the precision behind each movement. Yet, even as victories mounted, the drama never waned. Matches against Nigel Benn were revisited, Michael Watson returned, and a new generation of challengers, like Joe Calzaghe, stepped into the ring. Each contest was a narrative in motion, a story of timing, power, and psychological warfare. Against Calzaghe, Eubank faced a rising star, a clash of generations, and though he ultimately ceded the title, he did so with dignity, passing the torch to a fighter who would go on to dominate an era. Eubank's final years in the ring were a testament to adaptability and integrity. Moving to cruiserweight to challenge Carl Thompson, he confronted the limits of age and endurance. His strategies evolved, his heart remained undiminished, and even in moments of physical peril, he displayed the restraint that had become his signature. The stoppage that ended his last fight was not a defeat of courage, but a recognition of the toll exacted by the sport. He exited the ring not as a man diminished, but as a figure larger than the sum of his punches, his persona, or his public image. Retirement did not diminish Eubank's magnetism. Television appearances, commercials, and movie cameos kept him in the public eye. His flair for drama and performance undimmed. Beyond the spectacle, he devoted himself to philanthropy, building housing for the homeless, advocating against war, and engaging in charitable endeavors that leveraged his fame for tangible impact. Yet, fame exacted its toll on personal life. His marriage to Karen dissolved under the pressures of media scrutiny and financial turbulence. Bankruptcy, legal battles, and relentless public attention tested the limits of his resilience. And yet, through it all, Eubank retained his essence, a man of elegance, intellect, and indomitable spirit, willing to stand by his principles even when they ran counter to public expectation. The story of Chris Eubank is not merely the story of victories and defeats in the ring. It is a narrative of contrasts and contradictions. From street hooligan to aristocratic champion, from devastating puncher to compassionate adversary, he embodied the duality of human nature in the most extreme of arenas. His legacy is written in the scars of his opponents, the applause of stadiums, and the enduring influence on the generations that followed. His children inherited not only his physical prowess but his tenacity, creating rare moments in boxing history where sons retraced the paths of their fathers at the highest levels of the sport. In the quiet moments, long after the cheers fade and the bright lights dim, Chris Eubank reflects on a career filled with triumph, tragedy, and profound humanity. Meeting Michael Watson decades after their infamous fight, the two men shared a moment of reconciliation and respect, a testament to endurance, forgiveness, and the enduring complexity of the human spirit. Eubank's story, at its core, is one of transformation, of taking adversity, channeling it through discipline and intellect, and emerging as a figure of enduring legend. A gentleman outside the ropes, a gladiator inside them, and a showman whose narrative continues to resonate across generations. Bang. Knockout after knockout, Chris Eubank lived a life that was unapologetically grand, unapologetically daring, and uncompromisingly authentic. He stood as a symbol of excellence in a sport defined by extremes, balancing elegance and ferocity in a way that few could hope to replicate. From the streets of London to the arenas of the world, from youthful rebellion to aristocratic poise, his life has been a testament to courage, style, and the extraordinary power of character. When asked how he would like to be remembered, he reflected not on victories, titles, or accolades, but on integrity, humanity, and the choices that defined him. A man who got up when the world expected him to fall, who faced fear with grace, and who lived fully, boldly, and without compromise. So, as the curtains fall on the story of Chris Eubank, one question remains for the audience. How do you measure greatness? Is it in the number of knockouts, the prestige of titles, or the courage to act with conscience in moments that define a career? Reflect on the choices, the sacrifices, and the contradictions that shape a legacy. And if this story inspired you, if the drama, the spectacle, and the humanity of Chris Eubank captivated you, jab that like button, subscribe to the channel, and